Good evening, all. Welcome to today's Cancer Healing Journey Talks. Myself, Annie Jose from Community Outreach Team of ZenOnco.io and Love Heals Cancer. Cancer Healing Journey Talks helps cancer survivors and caregivers to share their journey with vast number of survivors and caregivers who have traveled or been traveling through this journey. This can inspire and motivate them for their faster recovery as well. Firstly, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Vanessa Ghigliotty. She's a stage 4 colon cancer survivor, advocate, blogger, NYC C5 Steering Committee member, N2Y Advisory Board Committee member, Certified Patient Navigator, Public Speaker, and Consultant. So welcome to today's session, Vanessa.
Hi, thank you for having me.
That's great. So can you please talk a little bit about what type of cancer you had and what stage was it when it got diagnosed?
So I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and I was only 28 years old. I have no family history and I have no known genetic mutations. And the way that it was discovered was really kind of scary. So I am a 19-year survivor. So when I was 20, I want to say when I was about 26 years old, I started feeling kind of sick. I started feeling a lot of pain of my abdomen. I started feeling a lot of fatigue and nausea, and then it got worse. So by the time that I was 27, I had gone back to college a little later because I had a child young, right? And so I'm working and going to school. I'm working part-time, going to school full-time, and then I'm running around, like moms do, like with Little League and karate and everything that you have to do. I literally never had time for myself. So I foolishly thought, like, this unbelievable fatigue that I had, I just thought it was because I just never had time to myself. I really didn't sleep well. And it's like, not only was I super tired, it was a fatigue that no matter how much you slept, you couldn't shake it off. And then the fact that a lot of foods that I would normally eat, just the smell of it would just get me nauseous. And I knew I wasn't pregnant. So it was just a very weird feeling, but I never had time to dwell on it. Right. So I just kept going, kept doing what I was doing. And when I graduated school, I realized the pain was just too much. And I went to the doctor. And my doctor said kind of what I was feeling. She's like, "You're really doing too much." And she's like, "You need to take a rest, take it easy. Can you afford to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can take the summer off and just like spend time with my son. It's great, no problem." And I did that. And then when it came time to start not only looking for work, but I was supposed to start my LSATs because I did want to be a lawyer. 9/11 happened in New York City. So New York City shut down, and it was the most scariest time, I think, in New York for me personally. And everything, and when I tell you everything shut down, everything shut down. So I started becoming less and less of myself. I started having like more pain, and I started having more nausea. And then I started not being able to really eat. And honestly, and every time I ate, I didn't eat because every time I ate, I would get so much pain. And I really thought, oh, this is happening because I'm depressed, because I can't find a job now, and I just graduated, and my student loan payments are coming in, and what am I going to do? And I started worrying, and I really, like, everything that was going on with me health-wise, I contributed to something outside of myself instead of really paying attention to my body, to be honest. And I went back to the doctor, and I remember this was October, and my doctor was gone, and there was a new doctor there, and he was, with no disrespect to the many amazing doctors out there, he was horrible, and he was the worst, because now by this time I had this growth on the right side of my body, and it was hard like a rock, and it hurt when you touched it. So now I knew something is wrong with me. But honestly, I was thinking I had like a cyst on my ovary or something like that, right? So I go to the doctor, and I'm telling him, look, I have this fatigue that's been here for like a year that's just not stopping. I have this incredible nausea. I have this super painful bloating. I can't eat because it hurts to eat. I rarely have bowel movements. Like, I rarely go to the bathroom. even when I do, or when am able to eat. I was like, and then I have this on the side and it hurts. So he's listening to me, he's writing stuff down, and he touches this growth that I have on my side, right? This big lump. And he goes, that's just gas. And I'm like, it hurts. And he goes, it hurts because it's gas, because you eat so unhealthy. What did you expect? And I kind of looked at him like he was crazy. Like, what are you talking about? And so then he started to speak to me as if I didn't know how to speak English. And he's like pronunciating every single word so slowly and speaking to me like if I had trouble comprehending or understanding. And he was like, you are unhealthy, you're overweight, like you need to eat more roughage. And then he's explaining what roughage is, and like he's just going on and on. And I sat there and I said, look, I was like, I'm born and raised in America. The only language I speak is English. I was like, so whatever it is that you're on, can you please get off of it? And I'm telling you that something is wrong with me and I'm in a lot of pain. I was like, and there is a lump here on my side. And he was like, and I already told you that's gas. I don't know what else you want me to say. You have to start eating better. So we kind of got nasty with each other. I'm not gonna lie, we really did. And I was sitting there because I was like, he has to do something for me. And he goes, you're still here? And I go, of course I'm still here. I'm not okay. And he tells me, well, I think if you need so much attention, you should get yourself a boyfriend. And that's when I picked up my stuff and I left the doctor's office, and I was hysterical crying the whole way home. And I spent the next, that was October. So of 2001. So it was October, November, December, January, February, March, April. So that April of 2002 is when I couldn't walk. Now I couldn't walk. I'm in bed all the time because I'm freezing all the time and I have no energy. I have no strength. And the nausea is unbearable. The pain that I had in my lower abdomen, especially my lower right abdomen, was unbearable. I really couldn't walk. And my mother was like, that's it. You cannot live like this. We're going to the emergency room. And we did. And they took me to the emergency room. I went into triage, and they were like, oh my God, you have over 103 fever. Like, get in right away. So they put me into like a private emergency room, and a doctor came in and he was feeling my abdomen, and he's like, we really think we think your appendix, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a part. I went for x-rays. So they said, we think your appendix burst. We see something on the x-ray, and this will explain the extreme pain, the lump you have on the side, and your high fever. And I have to tell you, I felt so relieved. I felt like, finally, this is what was wrong with me. And then the doctor proceeded to tell me, you're really lucky because you could have died from this. He was like, but somehow your body put like, it seems to be like this protective coating around where everything that burst came out. So I thought, oh my God, this is great. And I'm gonna like probably have surgery, and they're gonna like repair everything, and I'm gonna go back to normal, and life is gonna be amazing again, right? Well, no, that wasn't the case. So I was admitted into the hospital, and we went in. They went in actually to drain what they thought was a whole containment of fluid, and they went in to drain it, and everything stopped in this small room. And I remember I was kind of in a twilight they gave me, right? And the pain from when they tried to drain the fluid woke me up, and then I just saw everything stop in that little room. Everything stopped, and there was scrambling, and everyone's running around. And then finally these men come in, these three men, and I knew something was different because these men were not only dressed different, but they had like very expensive watches, very expensive shoes. Like, you just saw the difference in this, and then the way they were speaking and carrying themselves. And I was like, oh my God, these are big leagues. These are big time doctors. Like, these are specialists. Why are these specialists here? And, your mind's racing, your heart's racing, and you're left alone on this table, like with all these machines for a while. And finally they take me out, and they put me back into my room, and a surgeon comes up, And a surgeon comes to tell me, well, Miss Ghigliotty, we found a solid mass on the side. So it's not an appendix, and we're not sure what it is, but it might be a tumor. So we don't know if it's cancerous or not, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, okay. And he goes, but I have to tell you in my experience, most likely this is cancer. And he goes, and if it is cancer, where it is, that's your colon. It would be colon cancer. And I was 28 years old. What did I know about colon cancer? Like, nobody talked about it 19 years ago. No one really did. And I remember thinking, but isn't this for old people? Like, don't old people get this? Like, really old people in nursing homes? And he was like, well, usually, but that's not the case with you. And I don't want you to worry about anything until we go in there. And I was like, okay. And that's it. And it wasn't, I didn't know enough to ask questions. I didn't know enough to ask what would happen, what my options are, that I even had the option of being like, no, you know what? I'm not doing this emergency surgery. I want to see other surgeons. I want to speak to other, like, I didn't know anything. And I just went with whatever he said because I was so ignorant of the whole cancer world and of really my body. Right. So we had the surgery. I woke up and I was cut, like my whole, from like, right above my private area to right above my belly button. And I remember when he came to talk to me, he had said that the cancer started on my right side. So I had the right-sided colon cancer. It ate up my appendix and was coming through my abdominal wall. And that was the big lump I felt. And he said, it ate up a lot of your wall on the right side. He goes, and then the other side of that original tumor went in and out of your large and small intestine. And it has what they call the jelly belly tumor because it burst through the appendix. It caused all this jelly-like substance to wrap around the tumors. And not only that, but it wrapped around my whole abdomen. And what he described it as, it looked like a dead jellyfish was inside my abdomen. And he goes, that's really scary because that's just all cancer. It's all cancer. And he was like, I want you started on chemo ASAP. And I was like, okay, I don't know anything, right? And I'm just like, okay, I'm just saying okay with everything because I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to process any of this. And while I was there in my room recovering, the first oncologist that I ever saw, she came up to my room and she sat down and she's like, so we need to talk. And I go, okay. And she's like, so she said who she was and she would be my oncologist. And she said, and she said the name of my surgeon and she said, he wants you started ASAP on chemo. And I said, well, okay, well then let's do that. And she goes, well, first you do have to heal from surgery. She goes, and second, she goes, I really don't know how effective chemo would be at this point. And I go, well, what are you trying to tell me? As my heart's pounding and racing. Well, what are you trying to tell me? And she goes, well, I'm trying to tell you that you should get your affairs in order ASAP. Oh, okay. So basically I'm sitting there at 28 years old and this woman is telling me like I'm going to die. That's what she's telling me. And I have a 10-year-old child. And all I could think about was I want to raise my child. I don't want anyone else to raise him. I want to raise him. He's my son. And I just felt very angry. I felt angry that someone else would be able to raise him and not me. And so now I want to backtrack. Yeah, I want to backtrack a little bit. So before I found out how bad the cancer really was that I had, my mother's sister, so my maternal aunt, had passed away from metastatic breast cancer. And there was a lot of cancer on my mother's side of the family. And a lot of them got cancer young, and they all died young, right? And my aunt, I think, was only like 38 when she died. And this was like 5 years, maybe 5 or 6 years before I got cancer. And I saw what happened. I saw what happened when you die from cancer, and how scary it is, and how you go from this unbelievably amazing, vibrant person to this, it's like a shell of what the person is, what your energy, what your essence is, right? And then I see what happens to your children when, after you die from cancer, it's just not the same. Like, everybody's there like the first couple of months, and then they just take away, like they go on with your lives. But and you know, I just kept thinking about that with my son, right? And I remember thinking, right there in that hospital, that I was going to deal with every single aspect of my death, that I was not going to be afraid of it. And I was going to take it and handle it, because I didn't want it. Whatever days that I had left to live, I was not going to let cancer rob me of the joy that I had in my days. And I thought, as long as they take care of what the pain, right? I'm going to try to live my best life. And I'm going to try to sit there and enjoy the people that I love, and not spend my time in the hospital getting treatment after treatment after treatment after treatment to try to prolong, to try to put off my death. That wasn't going to be my choice, right? So with that, I remember my mom in the hospital room with me when I'm telling her about what the oncologist said. And my mother flipped, like she flipped. And she goes, you're not staying here. You're not staying in this hospital. This is the same hospital where your aunt died. And my aunt was a nurse, by the way. Yeah. And she was like, and I will tell you, my aunt's, the doctor that she worked for, it was her and another woman that were his two main nurses. And he was so inspired by my aunt and how she handles everything and how she was, that he decided to go. He started being a doctor at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. And so did her friend. Like, it was her best friend that was also her fellow nurse, her work person. So they went down to MSK. So my mom called her, my aunt's best friend, and she was like, listen, this is what happened to my daughter. This is what's going on. And the woman was like, no, you're coming to MSK. That's it. You're coming down to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in Manhattan, in New York City. And this is a big, major cancer hospital in New York City. So I thought, oh my God, they're never going to take my insurance. And I'm looking up like on my phone, and I'm like, they don't take my insurance. Like, what am I going to do? But we went, and with much fighting, because I was like, I just want to stay here. I just feel comfortable with my surgeon, and I'm scared. Like, I was just scared. I was scared. And I'm just like, why am I going to try to prolong my death? I just want to die peacefully. Like, in my head, that's what I was thinking. And of course, I was just afraid to tell my family that, right? But anyway, we go down to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and I meet with Dr. Leonard Saltz, who is he is just like, he's such a big part of my heart, because I think cancer, when they say you have cancer, it doesn't matter what kind of cancer it is. It doesn't matter what kind of stage it is, whether it's stage 4 or stage 1, where it's so super easy. It doesn't matter. You have the same reaction. You have the same emotions, the same fear, the same devastation, the same, like, it's a mixture between, how did I betray my body, or why is my body betraying me? You have all these crazy thoughts that go on in your head, right? And but the biggest feeling that you feel is powerless. You feel powerless because you feel like you lost all control of your life, because now cancer has taken over. So I go down to Dr. Saltz, and I'm there, and we're talking, and I will say this: the first surgeon that I went to, and oncologist, never gave me a stage. They just said, what they said. So when I go down to see Dr. Leonard Saltz at MSK, he tells me, we're talking about this and that. And he's telling me his plan. He goes, look, he goes, I think we can do this. He goes, I think you're young enough and you're strong enough for me to be really aggressive with the chemo. He goes, and I'm going to be aggressive because we don't know what cells went where and where else the cancer can metastasize. We don't know. He goes, and it was in your abdominal wall. That's very scary. He was like, we can do that. We can, I didn't have clean margins from the surgery. So I still had cancer inside my abdominal wall. He goes, we're gonna start you off with a chemo regimen, and then we're gonna go back in and get all that cancer out. And I'm like, okay, all right, okay, let's do this. And then he was like, and then I go, oh, that's what I said. I was like, well, all right, it's not like I really have a choice. And he like stopped what he was doing, and he was like, excuse me? And I go, yeah, it's not like I really have a choice. And he goes, oh, you absolutely have a choice. This is your body. I don't tell you what to do with your body. You say what you want and don't want with your body. He goes, and if I don't agree with what you want, I will tell you, no, I want to do it this way. I feel like this is going to work. If you don't like what I'm doing, he said, I will send you to another oncologist or another surgeon or another hospital. He goes, whatever it is that you need, it is your power to do it. It's your power. And so I'm there these 3 weeks, right before I saw him, from when I first had the surgery and was told I had cancer, feeling so out of control and so lost and confused and just, it's like everything is in shambles, right? Your whole foundation has just crumbled. And it felt like he gave me that first stone to build myself back up. That's what he did. And he gave me those words, right? It doesn't seem like it's much, but this man gave me my power, and he literally gave me the strength to be able to fight the biggest fight I have ever had in my life. Because I know sometimes people get angry and say, oh, don't say you fought cancer. No, I fought. And for me personally, it was a battle. And he wasn't lying. The chemo was so aggressive. I did not do well on chemo. I did not handle chemo well. I couldn't work. I couldn't function. I couldn't stop vomiting no matter what kind of medicine they gave me, no matter what kind of steroids they put me on. I just spent 3 years like vomiting. I really did. And having like burning issues in my stomach and my esophagus and my teeth. Like, I've had so much work done on my teeth because between the chemo and the bile, not to be gross, but you're throwing up. If you're not eating, that's just bile coming up. So it's like pure fire, and that's in your teeth. And then sometimes I would go to rinse it out, and even the water. And I know water doesn't have a smell, but to me it did. And I would smell the water, and then it would remind me of getting chemo. So then I would just throw up more, and it was just this ugly cycle. So for me, it was a battle, right? And I had multiple surgeries. I've had 10 surgeries in total. Because I had like reoccurrences, I had metastasis, like the colon cancer went up to my left lung. And then I had a lot of reparative surgery. I had a lot of complications. Everything that they say, oh, this happens like 1 in 500,000. This happens like 1 in a million. This happens like 1 in 500. Every single complication that you can develop from either the chemo or the surgeries or the medicines, I got. So I was in the hospital all the time. And I have to tell you, during this time of battling the colon cancer in my body, I also still dealt with my death. Remember, because I thought like I'm gonna die, right? And I'm sorry, I completely skipped over this part. So that day in Dr. Leonard Saltz's office, not only did he give me power back, but he said, you're stage 4. And I thought, oh, awesome. So I'm thinking like, you know, when you're pregnant, you have to like dilate to 10 centimeters, I think it is. So I'm thinking there's stage 1 through 10 of cancer, and I'm at stage 4. So I'm the lower end. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. And when I went home and I'm researching colon cancer and I'm looking up stage 4, every single thing 19 years ago was, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. You're lucky if you make it like 6 months. Everything was just gloom and doom and worse news on top of worse news on top of worse news. And I remember taking my monitor and pushing it across the desk. Like I just threw it and I grabbed my desk and I stood up and I'm hitting my desk and I was crying and I was like, nobody's going to tell me. Nobody's going to tell me I'm going to die. Nobody, like I got angry. And I think me personally, everybody has something that fuels them, right? And that anger of that doctor telling me, oh, you're unhealthy, you need to, you know, you need to eat healthier, that's why you're in pain, instead of taking me seriously when I was probably like a stage 2 or 3, there I was now stage 4, and you're telling me there is absolutely no possibility of me living. Thank you, because now I'm angry. So I said, okay, all my death is going to get dealt with. So I go to Dr. Salt's where my treatment starting, and in the hospital, Memorial Sloan Kettering, because I was so young, they were really so amazing to me. They treated me like gold. And I was there so often. It was my home away from home, and I felt safe there. And they assigned me this amazing social worker who would counsel me, my mom, my son. My dad would like drop me off for chemo, and then we'd like take a cab home, right? And it was getting very expensive. So she was able to get me with a scholarship in Memorial Sloan Kettering, where a cab would take me home, like a private cab would take me home. And it was like someone who passed, who left that specific scholarship for whoever needs transportation from getting chemo. And that's just how amazing that hospital was. That's how amazing that social worker was, and how much she helped myself and my family. And she helped me to get a social worker for my son. She helped me to get a lawyer. And she connected me with this amazing organization in New York City, which unfortunately no longer exists. But this organization would help out single mothers who had terminal diseases. So it wasn't just cancer. It would be like AIDS, and I think lupus, and a couple of other things. And they would come to your house and work on anything, any paperwork, anything. So they did. So the social worker, a lawyer, my mom, dad, myself, and we spoke to his dad already, discussed what would happen with Scott after I died. So my son was only 11 now at this time, right? And you know, his innocence kind of, it left. My son had to grow up that day, and he had to decide who he wanted to live with after I died, whether it was his dad in California or stay in New York with my parents. And decisions were made, and all the paperwork went through, and I felt this combination of such power, like, okay, cancer and my death, I don't fear you anymore. I don't fear you. You're not going to control me. I handled what I needed to handle, and it felt so empowering. It was amazing. And I even decided what song I wanted to play when I passed away, because I'm a Catholic, right? So like I, you know, of course would have a Catholic mass at my funeral, and I'm thinking, and I even assigned like what ushers I wanted to carry my casket down the stairs of the church. And I had my brother, I was like, you have to promise me. I was like, I don't care who gets mad. I was like, you have to play on your cell phone, like play it out loud. Like I want him to play like ding dong, the witch is dead, the wicked witch. Like, and I went, and it's the song from Oz, right? And I just went hysterical laughing, and I was like, I want people to laugh. I want people, like, that's the saddest part to me of a funeral, is when you It's not even when you bury someone, but when you come down the stairs of the church. To me personally, that's the saddest part. And I thought, I don't want people crying. I want people laughing. And I know if my brother did that, they'd be like, oh my God, that's so Vanessa, right? And it was just, it was empowering to do all of that. So here I am fighting for my life and doing everything I have to do and dealing with all these complications and making amazing friends along the way. And I noticed that no matter how sick I was, everyone was always in my room, right? At MSK, nurses would come in and hang out, doctors would come in and hang out, other patients would come look for me and hang out. And I realized there was something about my energy and that I was just so open and I was very loving. And no matter how bleak, I would get really bad news, like a really bad setback. I just had this infectious joy and hope. I can't describe this unbelievably hope I had because I had a fiance at the time, and I remember he would be with me in the hospital a lot. He was amazing when I was sick, and I remember crying because I would never cry in front of everybody. I would pretend like I was strong, and I cried in front of him and said, you know, I'm going through more complications than's normal. He goes, seriously. He was like, nobody does, like, he's like, this is extreme. And I go, yeah, but I feel like I have a calling. I was in the bed in my hospital room at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and I said, I feel like I'm meant to give back. I feel like if I make it through this, that my life will no longer be my own, that my life is going to be dedicated to giving back. And I feel like I'm going through every complication that you can go through, because then I will be able to understand people's journey more and be able to relate more with people because I've gone through what they're going through. And I remember that thought put an image in my mind, and I saw myself giving speeches. I saw myself going to hospitals to visit people. I saw myself at my son's high school graduation, and that vision was so strong. No matter how sick I got, I held on to that vision, and I created a mantra. And every time I would get the chemo, I would say, God, please let my body accept this chemo, and may it kill off all the bad cancer cells, and may it keep my healthy cells strong. And I remember my oncologist, Dr. Saltz, telling me, Vanessa, with the chemo I'm giving you, I'm surprised we've never had a problem with any of your cells, with your white blood cell count or your red blood cell count. He goes, that happens so often. And it never happened to me. With all the complications and problems I had, that was one problem I never had. So anyway, let's fast forward to, like, it's 3.5 years later. And it was a treatment I was on, and it was the only treatment out of all the many different cocktails that I took that I actually tolerated. I would be sick for the first day, and then that was it. Usually I would be sick. I would get chemo on Tuesdays, and I would be sick all the way until Friday. And Friday I would get up and shower and have like a broth, and then I would be able to start tolerating things, right? And with this chemo, it was like 1 or 2 days later that I was okay and I was fine. So it was one particular day I got the chemo and I got super sick, and my mother's mother just had a stroke. So my parents went away because I was living with my parents, my son and I. And they were away taking care of my grandmother, who literally had a stroke, a really bad one. And I'm alone with my son. I'm alone. My son's in school, and I'm just extremely sick. And I check, and I have a high fever, and I'm like, oh no, something's wrong. So I started preparing a bag because I knew my history, and I was like, I'm going to get admitted. They're going to find something. I know something's wrong with me. So I'm preparing a hospital bag because I had like a special pillow and a special blanket, a matching throw that was just for the hospital. And then I had like my little mom stuff and little angels and, my toiletry bag, everything. Because I was in the hospital so often, I had to make it home for me, right? Where I felt grounded and I felt safe. And so I had my little bag, and I'm calling up people like, okay, so Scott comes out of school at this time. I'm going to pick him up. He has a dentist appointment. I'm going to take him to his dentist appointment, and then I'm going to come back home and blah, blah, blah. And my brother had lived upstate at that time. And I was like, listen, can you come and stay, here overnight? Because I don't know what's going to happen. And I feel like I'm going to be admitted. Can you stay here a couple of nights and go to work from here? And he goes, yeah, sure. No problem. So like, I made sure to handle everything. I picked up my son, and he was like, you don't look good. I was like, I know, let's make this a quick appointment. Go to the doctor. He had braces. He got adjusted. We came home. I think I picked up some food, right? And then I was like, okay. And I took a cab, and I was like, your uncle's coming at this time. I was like, a neighbor upstairs, she's going to watch you until he comes, like, to make sure everything's okay. And, I made sure everything was in place, and I go off to the hospital, and my fiance met me there. And while I was there waiting, in urgent care at Memorial Sloan Kettering, a woman looked so sad. I mean, she looked so unbelievably sad that I went and sat next to her, and I go, and meanwhile, I'm feeling super sick myself, right? And I sat next to her, and I was like, are you okay? I'm sorry. I'm not trying to bother you. And I was like, and if you want me to go away, I will. I said, I just feel like you look like you need somebody to talk to. And she goes, I do. She grabbed my hand. So then I put my other hands on top of hers, and we're holding each other like this. And she started to tell me, she's breast cancer, and they had to take off her breast. She had double mastectomy, and all this stuff. And she's telling me everything she's going through. And her husband was having an affair with her best friend since like junior high school, I think. And that he took off with her best friend, and is living his life with her best friend while she is here battling cancer. And she's crying, and I'm holding her, and we're talking, and blah, blah, blah. And a nurse was like, you guys are both sick. Your immune systems aren't good. I don't think you should be holding each other. And I was like, well, she needs me right now, and I'm here for her. And it like clicked on me. Like it at that moment, I go, I'm going to live. I remember thinking, I'm going to live, and I'm going to live because this is what I'm going to do. Like, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to be. And it was just like this epiphany for me, right? So anyway, we exchanged number. I told her, I was like, listen, I'm going to be on this floor. That's the colon cancer floor. You want to come visit me. And of course she did, by the way. But now we go, I'm admitted. I had pain on my right side again, where the original pain was, and there was a lump there again. So I thought, oh, I must have like a recurrence, right? And I also had a lot of trouble breathing. But I did think it was anxiety. Well, it turned out after they did all this test, and they had sonograms here and here and all these other tests I don't even know the names of, that I never did before. And when I wake up the next morning, I see my oncologist come in with a bunch of suits. It's like, you see the suits, you see the watches, and it's like these big time specialists, right? And I'm like, oh boy, this isn't good. So I was like, hi, Dr. Salt. And he goes, hey, kiddo. So blah, 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 and he's telling me all this stuff. He goes, well, there's a really big sac around where your original surgery was. It's a huge sac, and it looks liquid. It doesn't look solid, but we don't know what it is. And he goes, and we found a big mass in your heart. And I go, oh, that's why you're here. And he was like, yep, that's why I'm here. And I go, okay, so what are we going to do? So he turned to all the specialists, because their mouths are like this, dropped. He turned to all the specialists, and he goes, do you see what I told you? Isn't she amazing? Isn't she great? So he always just found a way to make me feel good, even though like he's telling me horrible news, like they found a mass in my heart. So he said, look, he goes, do you understand that we have to stop chemo? We can't give you chemo anymore. He goes, and we're going to have to deal with what's going on. And I go, all right, so we'll do it. He goes, I said, whatever we have to do, you let me know what we got to do, and I'll make sure I'm ready and up for it. And that was it. Like, all right, what's the next steps? Let's get going. And he goes, okay, so first we're going to deal with this on the side. So they did. And, we went with my surgeon, who was Dr. Philip Patey, an amazing man who did most of my surgeries. And we go in, and he's this, and he's pushing, and he's doing this, and he's doing that. And, he's going in there, and he goes, He goes, yeah, somehow he's like, I don't think it's cancer. He goes, it's something serious, but it's not cancer. And I was like, all right, are we going in there? He's like, yep. So they're scheduling surgery. I'm telling my father everything that's going on. And I'm like, Dad, please don't tell mom. She's dealing with her mother who's almost died. Like,
Yeah.
leave it alone. And little did I know that my father's telling my mother everything. My mother's freaking out. And right before I had surgery, they had flown back to New York and they were there, my mother looking so haggard. I felt so bad. And my parents were with me, and I did feel relief because then they were home taking care of my son, so I didn't have to worry about that, right? And I had a great care team. My fiance was with me, and my friends were amazing. And so they go in, they found an infection that was some kind of rare infection. My body, they built up because I had no abdominal wall, because they took out my abdominal wall to take out the rest of the cancer. My body rejected the first wire mesh that they did. And my body had a gigantic infection, and that they had to drain out, and then they had to pack it. So I had to get that wound. So it looked almost like a turkey, not to be gross, but it was just like a turkey, and it was long and big. And then as they packed it, it just went smaller and smaller. So they had to stop all chemo. I had to go see some doctors from like the CDC to go on an antibiotic regimen that was so unbelievable and strict. It was like 20 something antibiotics a day. And I was sent home, and I know everybody was really scared because they said, wow, we can't even deal. Oh, so they also found out it wasn't a tumor in my heart. It was a clot in my heart
Okay.
that the chemotherapy port caused. And it was like in my right atrium, and it was huge. So they couldn't even use my port anymore. And it was like, so I had to do this. Meanwhile, they don't know, they're so scared that I still have cancer and that's spreading anywhere. And somehow I knew I didn't. I was like, no, this happened because I don't have cancer anymore. And the reason
Yeah.
why my last treatment went bad is because I remember I kept telling my doctor, no, I don't have cancer anymore. And he's like, okay, Vanessa, how do you, and I'm like, I know I don't have cancer anymore. And you know what? And it turns out I didn't, because they did this. And then they did this for 4 months, the treating the infection. And then I had another, that's 4 months. Then I had another about 6 months of doing daily blood thinners to try to, they were trying to shrink the clot in my heart. And it just kept growing though, even with the blood thinners. And I finally said, look, I really can't breathe, because it would be, and my heart was just irregular and it was scary. And so I had to have open heart surgery, and that was scary. And that's how my journey with cancer ended, with the open heart surgery. And then they saw, like, your cancer just hasn't come back. And it's 15 years later, and I am still colon cancer free.
Yeah, that was a really amazing story, Vanessa. And yeah, I'm really happy that I got a chance to listen to your story. It was really amazing. So thank you so much. And I have one question. So one that will be like, if you have to sum up your whole journey in one sentence, what would that be?
Transformative. My journey with cancer was transformative. It's
Okay.
it's very it gave me purpose in life. It gave me my passion, and my purpose is to advocate for those who don't have a voice. I will be I'm now 48, right? I was 28 when I was diagnosed. This April will make 20 years from when I was diagnosed, and I definitely want to celebrate and do something big. But I'm at this place in my life right now where I dreamed of this. I dreamed of growing old, and I have now the ability to grow old, and with the gray hairs and the wrinkles, right? And it's a mixture of joy and like, oh my God, I'm getting old. And then like, no, I wanted this. Okay, let me embrace it. And it's a very weird feeling, but I have this amazing purpose in my life, and my whole life is dedicated to giving back. And I can't even tell you how amazing it is that that I'm able to give back, that I speak to people every single day of my life. I'm speaking to people either online or on the phone, people who have seen my story, because my story's out there, whether it's through the blogs or the video things I've done or conferences, like people see my story and they reach out to me. And then I also have people, because I'm a patient navigator with organizations that I do patient support with. And I feel so blessed that I'm able to help them out, even if it's just a little bit. And I'm also able to sometimes, I have patients that don't know their rights. They don't know what to do. And I'm able to navigate the whole system for them. Like, no, you can get this second opinion. It doesn't matter if the hospital is like 100 miles away from you. You can do it this way. And you can go for even though you're at this hospital, you can go see another doctor at this hospital because you're not happy with this one, and it's fine. And it's just so many things like that. Like I didn't know when I said I didn't know that I could say, and I didn't know this and I didn't know that. Well, I like to be that person for someone. You don't know, that's okay. You don't know. I didn't either, but I know now. So let me help you navigate your way through this. And if it's not you, then it's your family, because you don't just get cancer, your family gets cancer too. And I'm glad I'm able to do that. I'm glad I'm able to go to Capitol Hill to fight for more money into NIH, more money into, which is like the National Institute of Health. And that's where everything comes out of. So all the new chemos, all the new everything is like, they got that money and then it trickles down to, all of these big pharmas. And that's how we get amazing research. I mean, the medicines that are out here today that weren't out there 20 years ago is huge. And never mind the fact that this year we have this amazing victory of having the screening age move from age 50 to age 45, because I'm here and I literally will spend the rest of my days until my last breath fighting for people who are under the screening age who get ignored. And the fact that they moved the screening age to 45 means, like, if someone's 40 years old, a doctor's not going to brush them off anymore. They're going to say, wait a minute, maybe I know they're not 45, but maybe I should take a look and let's send you for a colonoscopy. You know what I mean? Like it's such a big difference. And I know I played a large part in that. I played a large part in advocating for that and in pushing and in fighting and in empowering others to fight and to give back. And it's just given my life such purpose and meaning, and I'm so grateful.
That's great, Vanessa. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. So I'm sure that this session will really motivate people out there who is currently traveling or who have traveled through the journey. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great meeting you.